Hello, this is Lisa Harrison. Today is the 1st of February 2013, and once again I'm catching up with Robert Morningsky. Welcome, Robert.
Thank you very much for allowing me to be with you. It's been an extremely trying month, and I thank you again for the opportunity to be with you, please.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to talk to you again. You know, the response to the information you shared last time we talked was so well received and much needed, I think. The timing is perfect. So it is an absolute honor and a privilege to speak with you again. Very happy to
Well,
do it.
thank you. Thank you. We had really good response here as well. We had, you've got a global audience. We had responses from your program from all over the globe. So, again, thank you. I really do appreciate it.
So you mentioned a difficult month. What's been going on?
Well, actually, what occurred and what I want to explain to your listeners, and hopefully have the word spread, is that at the beginning of the month, I've been working on my website for pretty close to 2 years now. And at the beginning of the month, I went to upload some changes, and all of a sudden I could not access it. All three of my websites, I have 3 websites, I could not access. So I went to the host, which is GoDaddy, probably know them. We went through several tests, and for several days, the websites were simply frozen. Now, the connections were being made. In fact, GoDaddy did some connections on their own. They accessed the site. They showed that the connections were good, and we uploaded again. We did some restoring. I actually have spoken to 11 different technicians at GoDaddy, and everything shows that the data is being uploaded. But when you go on the site, there are no changes. I contacted the software company that handles the publishing software. I spoke to their technicians. They found that, yes, the connections are being made. They did the same thing. The website is not being changed.
How can that be?
Well, precisely. I mean, I have now spoken to 19 individuals, technicians, people who specialize in computers, internet, GoDaddy, software, and everything shows the connections are being made, but the website is not changing. None of the websites are changing. At the same time, my emails suddenly stopped. I was receiving nothing. I started to test my emails with family members who live in Arizona with me. We exchanged emails. I received maybe 25% of what they sent. They received maybe half of what I sent. I got a new email address. I got a new network server. We did the same thing. Emails, maybe 50-50 that are being received. And this one is the funniest one. Since I sent you the email last week, 2 days ago, I went to Facebook. A lot of people have said, use Facebook. You can get the word out and that. Since I could not get any emails out, I could not access my website, I said, okay, I do not know Facebook. I will give it a try. I went on Facebook. The first thing that I get back, the first page, you must use, I put in my full name, Robert Morningsky, robertmorningsky.com, and I got a message back that says, you must use a real name. Now, the funny thing is, there already is a Facebook page out there with my name on it. I didn't set it up. There are people apparently who put likes or whatever they do on that, but it's out there. But I get a message back. 4 times I tried. 4 times I get a message, you must use a real name. So finally I was able to go through all the rigmarole, all their pages, and they said, okay, send us your ID to prove who you are. I scanned and sent them a driver's license, which I've used for legal documents for the banks, etc. My ID was rejected. Lisa, I cannot get a Facebook page. Now, do you know how impossible that sounds?
I do. Because
I hear stories about people who make up names and they get a Facebook page. I use my real name, my ID. Somebody has put a Facebook page up there already, and I am rejected. My ID and my name is rejected by Facebook. Now it's funny, but 2 nights ago, I was furious.
I bet.
So my situation is I cannot access, actually, I take that back. One of my websites I've finally been able to break through. That's my Lady of Fire site. My other 2 sites are frozen. Maybe half of my emails are going in and going out and coming in. And I cannot get a Facebook page.
The
Is
Facebook
that,
part is just outrageous because there are people on
isn't,
Facebook that have clearly made up names, outrageous
yeah,
names, and
is that,
surely did not
it,
provide any ID.
it's funny now. But 2 days ago, they insisted the first page. I mean, 4 times I went through the process. You must use a real name. Robert Morning Sky is not a real name. I broke through, sent my ID. It was rejected. So I don't want to.
Well, it's an honour. You must have to wear it as a badge of honour from
I
rejecting from
I asked
Facebook.
my family. I asked my family at dinner last night. I said, toast me. I'm the only man that cannot get a Facebook page. How ridiculous that is.
Ah, that's
It
extraordinary. Yeah.
it is. It's funny, but there you go. So
So how
those
do
are the
people
difficulties.
now get in touch with you, or what's the best way for people to communicate with you at the moment?
I am receiving emails. Now, 2 nights ago, I did send out a mass emailing to a couple of hundred key people, around the globe, and I am getting responses coming back. But again, I don't know how many emails are getting through, which ones are not getting through. I don't know which emails I'm sending out that are getting through. So that's one of the reasons that I wanted to speak to you, is to say, look, if people are trying to reach me, this is my email address, and just keep trying. And so far, it looks like my email is reasonably resolved. However, I'm still working with, seriously, I've gotten 3 experts now, who work with internet websites, all that, and they're trying to resolve the situation. GoDaddy still in my software company. One of my brothers actually is a nuclear power plant programmer. He works on the computers there. We can't break through. The connections are made, but the website has its own life. It is out there somewhere, but it won't let me change it. And again, I don't want to promote or try to say there's a conspiracy out there. I don't want to do that. That's too easy. All I want to say is I'm having problems on many fronts, and for some reason, I can't get out there.
So what
And
is the
so
email address
you're
that you'd
my.
like people to use at the moment?
I'm sorry.
What is the email address you'd like people to use?
It's Robert Morning Sky at robertmorningsky.com. That one seems to be where I am receiving emails. Now, I have a ceremonial email address. It's robertbearclaw at robertbearclaw.com. That one seems to have been shut down. Robert Morningsky at ladyoffire.com seems to have been shut down. The best at the moment is the Robert Morningsky at robertmorningsky.com.
Now, if
So
there,
you have
so
become my hope
okay,
to reach out to the world,
happy
and
to
I
be.
sincerely appreciate it. I really do.
No,
It's astonishing. It's been a month that has been frustrating and amusing at the same time. Like I said, I had my family toast me at dinner for the problems in that I may be the only man who cannot get a Facebook page with his real name.
I
Is
do
that
believe that.
amusing?
I do believe you may well have that honour. Absolutely. Is
Yeah.
there anything that went up on your website that may have triggered I mean, I know you said you don't want to talk about it being a conspiracy, but was there information up there that was put up prior, to that month, to the last month, that may have triggered something,
Um,
a response?
I don't want to promote a conspiracy. I don't want to do that. I am simply suffering some technical difficulties for an unknown cause, and I want to continue to try.
And you mentioned, doing the honourings on the 21st to usher in the new calendar. What does the new calendar represent for you, to your knowledge?
Well, one of the problems that I have always had with the 2012 phenomenon that had been happening for the last few years is that people have been there's one author in particular who started this mess, but a lot of people jumped on the bandwagon, and some of the networks even began these doom preppers and 2012 people, and it's a complete misreading of the calendar. The calendar, and what's fascinating to me is that most people don't even know the name of the calendar. The calendar actually has a name, and experts who come out and spoke about 2012, December 21, the end of the world, never mention what its name is. They never mention where it is. They can't tell you anything about the calendar other than December 21 was the end, last day. But the calendar clearly points out to another age, a fifth age, which follows. And it's no different than when we celebrate January the 1st of the new year. Certainly, the Mayan calendar is much longer in time, many, many years, as opposed to just the one. And so, in fact, the Mayan elders that I'm familiar with, and they announced in several public forums that on the 21st, on the 22nd, actually, they were going to celebrate the new year, the new calendar. And they did that. And they invited people, and they had welcoming, they had New Year's celebrations. It was a new era. It was not the end of the world. And on December the 21st, I wanted to do the same thing, to thank the past year for all the accomplishments, all the things that we had experienced and what we had done, and to say thank you to the sunrise, to the new year, that we have a new age. And it's fascinating how, even in the Orient, the calendars refer to this fifth age. It's subtle, but there are individuals in the historic past, men of power, a term that I use, that have tucked away the meaning of this new era. The Hindu calendar, the Hopi, the Oriental calendars, and the Mayan calendars all hint strongly that it is a year of the feminine. And I have to say that when I started working with the Semsiye Elders years ago, that was our intent. We knew that 2012 would bring about the beginning of a new time when the divine feminine would be the focus, and that was what I was attempting to do. But of course, I think as I spoke with you last time, I was derailed. I had a problem. So now what I am trying to do, and it began December the 22nd. I am trying to promote the divine feminine. I am trying to promote what I am referring to as the Semsiye ways, the old ways. It is not a religion. A lot of people are trying to make it that. It is not a Native American concept. It is a global native concept. What I should probably do is explain that the Semsiye Elders. Now, let me back up a moment. The word Semsiye is derived from a Proto-Altaic, a Proto-Siberian language. In other words, it comes from what we would now call Siberia or Mongolia, but it is the oldest language from that region. And the word Semsiye actually means hidden, covered, secret, something that is out of sight. Mm-hmm. And these elders, and I can tell you the story again, the Semsiye elders were forced thousands and thousands of years ago to leave their homeland, to leave their home in Siberia in a place that is called Lake Baikal. They were forced to leave that area because there were men of power at that time, chieftains and men who wanted to control these. And let me make it very clear. The Semsiye society was fundamentally a woman's society. These were shaman women who had extraordinary abilities. In fact, to this day, if you study the Siberian shamanism, what the practices are conducted now in in present-day Mongolia, you will find that all of the shamans, the men, always dress as women. You'll find that in the Orient, in India, and in several places in central Russia. The shamanist dress is always feminine regalia. The
Mm.
very, very first and most powerful shaman society on this planet, in this world, was a society of women, and they were known as the Semsiye. They were the ones who they knew the secrets of the hidden. They knew the secrets of the invisible. They had the ability to connect with the other world. Again, many, many thousand years ago, and my best estimate is we're looking at somewhere between 30 and 50,000 BC. That is my best guess, and it is based on many papers that I have read from Russian scientists, Russian archaeologists. That is the best guess of the time frame that they existed. But they were forced to leave the Lake Baikal area because they were pursued by chieftains who wanted to capture them, to use their power, or at least to acquire their power, to learn what they knew, but they were forced to leave. They found an underground sanctuary many, many miles away, closer to what we would now call the land that is called Turkey. They found an underground sanctuary, and they took apprentices, both men and women, who went with them, who were learning how to become shamans. They were learning some of these practices. And in their underground sanctuary, I'm talking about caverns and caves, they began to dig, to alter these caverns to make them more suitable for what they wanted. Ultimately, they became the earliest underground cavern cave artificers. They were able to change. They were stonemasons, okay? But here's the fascinating part. When they found sanctuary in this underground cavern network, they would periodically send out very accomplished women. They were warriors. They were accomplished horse riders. If you study the history of Mongolia and central Siberia, you'll see that all the people were very, very good at riding horses. They were masters at horsemanship. And these young women were sent out of the cavern. They went into the outside world to see if they could to see if the world is actually ready, or there were people that were ready to learn the old ways. And these young women, these very accomplished warriors, horse people, they were masters in many physical arts and martial arts, shamanism. They were known as Masiens. That was the word for an apprentice. These Masien women eventually were noticed by people in Greece, down in Turkey, even in the Middle East, and they were referred to as Masiens, but the name eventually became Amazons. So these Amazons were actually shaman apprentice women, very physically skilled, as I said, but they went out, they attempted, they tried, but ultimately there was always a roadblock, there was always an obstacle, something happened, and they would return back to their underground sanctuary to pass on to the elder shaman women. This was not the time. Mm-hmm. Well, eventually, some of the Masiens, and again, while most of them were women, there were some men who became very accomplished as well. And they went out and they started to teach. And strange as it may sound, the men were better received than the women. Gee, I wonder why. But these men were better received, and they began to talk about these extraordinary powers, these abilities, these extraordinary secrets of the universe and the mysteries of the world. And in order for them to make their way, they became very accomplished stone masons. The Masiens, the male Masiens, were referred to as masons. Ultimately, without getting into a long history, they became the foundation of an underground, supposedly underground society that has become known as the Freemasons of today's world. And so, for thousands of years, the Semsiye Elders, again, they are not Native American. I am not promoting Native American traditions. I am promoting Native people's traditions. These Masiens, whose ancestry was from Siberia, the Lake Baikal area. Eventually, they would find a candidate in the Orient. They found a candidate in India, in Africa, in North America. They found candidates that they would bring into their underground sanctuary, and they would teach them. And so the Semsiye elders of this time are native people from across the globe. Mm-hmm. And as they have tried so many times over thousands of years, they will periodically send out a Masian in an effort to see, to test the waters, to see if the general public, or perhaps maybe there is a land or a region or a small country where they can begin to teach once again. I was very fortunate back in the 90s to encounter a gentleman who approached me and wanted to know if I wanted to learn some of these ancient traditions that were global. I was very fortunate. And over the years, I began to work with him, and eventually I was exposed to the teachings of the Semsiye. And in about 2003, I was granted permission to meet with, and I have to say, you cannot go to a Semsiye elder and ask them to teach me. You can't say, will you teach me? Can I be your student? You can't do that. You have to prove yourself first. You have to prove that you are worthy. And Ms. Lisa, I'm so fortunate. I have to be the most fortunate man on the planet in many ways because I was the first man granted permission to go dance on the top of the Great Pyramid. I have danced with the Aborigines and the Maoris down in the South. I've had so many achievements that I'm very proud of. But one of the things that I have really relished is the opportunity to create papers, to produce studies that I have submitted to independent study groups, to independent research groups, to various organizations and say, look, here's the paper, and it's on comparative religions. And I say, look, this is what's going on here. This is what's happening. And so I have also been very fortunate to have a performance career. I can go out and have been able to go out. I cannot tell you how many lectures and conferences, literally hundreds over the years of my career. And so I continue to perform honorings. I attend conferences. I prepare papers. And in 2003, I was tested. And I was fortunate. They actually put me through the ringer. I have to tell you, they put me through the ringer. But they began to share wisdom, and they said, see what happens if you try to tell this story. And so for years then, I was tested. I would write a paper. I would show them what I could do. I would show them how I would present it. And then, again, as I said a couple of years ago, I was stopped because I lost, I feel that actually a woman should be present and should actually lead the restoration of the old ways. And the woman that I was working with, again, I don't want to spend too much time there, I was stopped. And so approximately a year ago, actually would have been in May, I was contacted, my family, the elders, El Vastago, and some people said, you should try. If you just give up, if you just stop, then all your work would have been for naught.
Yes.
And so, I was speaking with you. I spoke with some other people on the air. I've spoken with the elders. And so I tried again. And I've been very fortunate. The response has been phenomenal. Yes, I get a lot of criticism and I get a lot of doors shut, but that's okay with me. Because if you don't have an open mind, if it doesn't make any sense, if what I'm presenting doesn't work, then go away. I'm really okay with that. And all I can hope to do is to inspire a handful of women or a woman who will want to learn the old ways, who will want to begin to conduct herself in the old ways and to try to teach others and say, look, this is the reality. And
when you
audio,
you sort of put a call out there. During our last conversation and also with the Lady of Fire website, you put that call out. What's the response been from women?
It's been really, really good. There have been a lot of women who have called and they said, I want to step up, I want to learn. And my first comment to all of them is, okay, listen to the audios that I've posted. And I hope my website, my Morning Sky website, I hope the audios are still viable. I'm not sure. and listen to the audios there. Listen to the audios on the Lady of Fire. I have several audios that I want to post now that I hope my Lady of Fire website is workable. Does it make any sense? I mean, ultimately, the response was tremendous. But here's, the underlying point in all of this that I want to convey to everybody, and I'm including men of fire, because there are men of fire out there as well. This world is truly, I've used the word illusion, but it's more than that. It's a construct. It's designed. It is, at its very heart, the foundation is designed to keep women in particular and men in general under control. And what I have tried to point out, based in part on what the Semsiye have taught me, and based on part in just looking at, the words and looking at the institutions that are out there, this world is not designed to allow you to become one with your fire, to become who you really are. You are supposed to behave in a certain way. You have to think in a certain way. Worse than that, you have to dress in a certain way. You have to eat in a certain way. And the rules that are placed upon humankind are so restrictive that I believe that's the reason why we have people who are suffering physically, they're suffering mentally, they're suffering emotionally. The whole concept of union within, a family. I mean, most families, I don't know. I mean, I don't like watching television anymore, because if you look at all these reality shows, they're all dysfunctional people. I don't think there is such a thing as functional people anymore. And that's because they don't know how to conduct themselves as a husband, a wife, a parent, a son, a daughter. They have no respect for themselves. How can they have respect for others? The reality shows are all about dysfunctional people. Kids who, especially the young men, I mean, what is their greatest passion in life today? It's those games, those violent PS2, PS3, Xbox, all that stuff like that. There are grown men, young men in their 20s and early 30s, that they cannot wait to get home and get onto their game system. And they don't know how to have a relationship. And, I'm sorry. I have a real problem with these dating websites that are out there where, meet your mate over the air. How do you know, what's on the other side of that computer monitor? I have a problem with that. And essentially what I'm saying is this. I think that the opportunity to truly be a human being, to truly become a passionate, fiery, individual with integrity and respect and honor, that's been taken away from us. We don't know how to do that anymore. It's been taken away because we're told this is the way you have to behave. And the worst possible problem, the greatest victim, is woman. And that's one of the reasons I want to help to restore the lost history of womankind and to show you what is going on. I'm sorry, ladies, the world, and I'm sure you don't realize this, right? But the world is designed to keep you under control.
We hadn't noticed.
You hadn't noticed.
Really? But that is changing. That's what this whole, whether it's the New Age community talking about the resurrection of Gaia and Sapphire and the feminine, or whether it's you talking about the Lady of Fire, and even like you mentioned, all of the calendars were talking about this new era, age, epoch, and it's driven by feminine energy. So it feels like it's going to change with or without us. It's going to even drag us kicking and screaming if need be. But it's going to change, and it is changing.
I think that's true. I think that there is some sort of inner recognition that this is wrong, and that I actually believe that there are women who realize it is wrong, but they don't know what to do. And I've seen many philosophies and disciplines. I've seen people, that argue, and my apologies, but people who say, oh, there's balance and harmony and all these other catchwords, and they don't realize, they don't understand what they're saying. And in the Semsiye way, and that's why I want people, listen to the audios, listen to what I'm saying, and if it makes sense, good. And if it doesn't, fine. If you find, comfort and satisfaction in this religion or this discipline or that, I'm okay with that. I can only hope that there will be a handful of women who will understand that it is important to learn what their lost history is. And it has been taken away from us.
Well, what about the
And
argument that your information is trying to take us from the extreme pendulum swing uh, of patriarchy at its extreme, and that your information is trying to take it back to the other extreme, matriarchal, and
well,
they want balance.
okay, and that is an error. They are misinterpreting what I'm saying. I am not trying to promote a matriarchy. I'm not trying to promote a woman in control. If you listen to the audios, what I am saying is that, and again, people have tried to make it a religion and as you described, some sort of matriarchal society. That is not the case. The Semsiye way essentially says that women have the ability, they have the inner fire that allows them to connect with the other world. In my audios, I often talk about how scientists today, astronomers, physicists, everybody talks about how we exist in 4% of the universe. 96% is made up of dark matter and dark energy that we do not know. They have no idea what it is. What I am saying is that women have the opportunity, they have a fire, they have a passion that will allow them to connect with the other world. And men have the duty, the opportunity, perhaps is a better word, apologize for duties, they have the opportunity to work with women in the 4% world to bring back a sense of spirituality, a sense of the other world. Do I want women to rule the world? No, absolutely not. Do I want men to rule the world? Absolutely not. I believe, and that's why I was saying earlier, that I can go out here and I can make these presentations and offer this information, but I honestly believe that there should be a woman at my side who is there so that we can present man and woman together, offering what I am trying to say is the old ways. It is a cooperative effort. It is not a matriarchal society. Now, I'm going to throw one other tiny little monkey wrench into the works here.
Okay.
This has upset a few people, but it's something that I think everyone needs to understand. This is a fact of science. It is reality. It is not an opinion. It is not something I came up with. Scientists have shown, biologists, neurologists, doctors, medical people have studied the human embryo. And what they have found is that at conception, every single embryo is oriented towards becoming a female. Mm-hmm. Every single embryo. You can look this up. You can find it out there. And what happens is that some embryos are bathed in a chemical, in testosterone, heavy doses, and they are altered. Their evolution, their development is altered, and they become males. The X chromosome, which is usually the marker for the female genetic makeup, in the male, it's a Y chromosome. Essentially, one of the arms of the X chromosome has deteriorated. It has become, I hate to use the word defective, it has become not as strong.
We did talk about this in our last talk, and that created a lot of discussion, I have to say. We basically put it out there that, men are deformed women. So.
Men are altered females. That is not an opinion. If every embryo was designed, it has an internal direction. And let us assume you believe in God or divinity. If you believe in some sort of creative power, that creative power intended all embryos to become female. Then with a touch of a chemical, Every single male is an altered female. That is something that we have to understand, but that is a positive thing. I am trying to say that females have this extraordinary ability to make a connection with the other world, with what I am calling the 96% reality, this universe.
But that would include
That
the altered females, right?
Exactly, exactly. That is precisely my point. So do men. But men working with women, men of fire united with a woman of fire, have an extraordinary opportunity, both of them do, to become a part of the 96%, to become a part of the other world. Being an altered female is not a bad thing. Now, I've had a lot of people, after even I spoke with you, a lot of people who say, well, no, that the Y chromosome is the identifier for the male, and if it's blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry. I don't recall if we talked about it, but there are some medical societies here in the United States that discovered that 1 in 20,000 men do not have a Y chromosome.
Ah,
They
you
are
did
double
mention
X.
that. You did. I
Okay?
found that fascinating.
Right. Now, what does that mean? Now, are they males? They don't have a Y chromosome. They have the appropriate plumbing.
Plumbing, yeah.
But are they, what constitutes a male? The plumbing or the X marker?
Mm.
And so I'm saying it doesn't matter. We are altered females, and we all have the opportunity to make a connection with the other world. Now, we males have to work harder. On the other hand, we generally have a stronger physique. We have a physical ability that most women do not. And so our physical abilities combined with the emotional and passionate abilities of women, you put those two together, you have a remarkable formula for achieving the other world. And so,
well, we say that feminine is receptive and masculine is active. So what I see, the image that I get when you talk like this, is that when a couple come together to actively and consciously work together in this way, it's the woman that receives the information from the 96%, more so than the male perhaps, but it's the male that then puts that into action in the world.
there you go. That is a real simple way of explaining it. When a male, if you are a man of fire and you have an interaction with a woman of fire, you can actually absorb, you can take in some of that energy, and at the very least, what she has learned, the connection that she made, the knowledge that she has acquired, I believe that in this world, a woman of fire, has the ability to gather the knowledge, to know what needs to be done, and her partner or partners, plural, the males, have the ability to put it into effect in the 4% world. Women are of the 96, men are of the 4%, but combined, there's 100% there, 100% universe. No, I'm not promoting a matriarchy. No way, no how, no way. It is a balance. It is a male and it is a female union.
You mentioned... Okay, sorry,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Can I talk to you briefly about the concept of marriage?
That's what I was going to ask you about. Yeah.
Yeah. The concept of marriage as it stands today has been completely turned around. Completely. In the Semsiye way, now let me back up again. According to the linguistic experts of this world all over the globe, what they will tell you is that the world's oldest language is what is known as the Proto-Indo-European or the Indo-European. And it is a language that appears to have surfaced somewhere around central Russia, central Siberia. Mm-hmm. Now, the question that I pose to these same experts, and the question that I think really should be answered, if in fact humankind came from Africa, and I don't dispute that, I won't argue with that, why is it that the oldest language doesn't come from Africa? Why does it come from central Russia, from central Siberia? And my argument is this. The Semsiye shaman women were so influential. Their ways, their knowledge, what they were trying to teach were so basic and so astounding to people of, thousands of years ago. Far more primitive. They didn't have the technology. They don't have what we have. But they had to have an understanding of nature, of the environment, and of themselves. And their teachings, the Semsiye teachings, were so influential that the Semsiye language was not the oldest language in the world, but it was the most influential because it made sense, because it affected people's lives, and the Semsiye language, I will argue, is not the oldest language, but the most influential language, and it is that Semsiye language which influenced the Proto-Indo-European. On the other hand, I'm sure linguistic experts are going to argue that because I'm not an expert. But in regards to marriage, generally the explanation about marriage is that it began back in the caveman days where a man and a woman bonded, and the concept was that the woman stayed home and she did the gathering and she did the planting and she took care of the kids, and the man, the caveman, would go out there with his buds and they would go hunting for mammoths and ostriches or whatever, and so they would bring home the food. That was the marriage. That's where marriage came from, the institution. Well, archaeologists and botanists and anthropologists have studied some of the hunter-gatherer societies, over the last roughly 100 years, and they found out that in these hunter-gatherer societies, the bulk of the food was brought in by the woman or the people that stayed home with her. The hunters that went out there would occasionally bring back, nice game and nice feed, but the bulk of the food came from the gatherers, the women. Mm-hmm. They then said, well, maybe we should take a look at some of the old evidence, some of the old hearts, some of the old cave sites, and see what happened. And they found that the same thing happened. In these cave sites, these old prehistoric homes, they found that around the hearth, around the campfire, within the cave and in the area, the primary source of food was plant life, stuff that they captured in small traps, birds, even fish, and big game and that kind of stuff food was not the primary source. In other words, if it's true that women stayed home, they were the primary contributors to the food supplies of the village or the tribe or the family. So that whole concept of the caveman out there hunting and taking care of his family doesn't work. Women, the gatherers, the planters, they were the ones that provided the bulk of the food. Now, what does that do to the whole concept of this masculine, man, hunter, go provide family? It didn't work. It doesn't work even to this day. So where does marriage come from? In the Semsiye ways of life, and the Semsiye women centered themselves around a place called Lake Baikal.
How do you spell
and
that?
Baikal. I would suggest go on the internet, to everybody, go on the internet and find out about this lake. It is a remarkable place. The deepest freshwater lake in the world. It has the greatest amount, I think it's 25% of the pure water in the world is at Lake Baikal, the deepest lake, the oldest lake. There's tectonic movement, earthquakes, there are pillars of fire that appear on the surface, winds, etc. And I'll tell you something really interesting about this place. This place, way back when, appears to have survived extremely well the glacial period in roughly 12,000 BC. In other words, it was a land of plenty. There was game, there was food, there was fish, there was plant life. They could survive very well. And Lake Baikal could only be accessed by 4 rivers. Mountains prevented, and the structure of the land prevented people from entering the Lake Baikal area other than to enter it by 4 rivers. Gee, now what does that hint at? At any rate, it's a fascinating place, and I can spend hours on that. But the Semsiye women, they were extraordinary shamaness women, masters at powers of the other world. And without getting into depth, you can imagine what a shaman can do, what a woman can do. And she needed what I am calling a man of fire, a champion. She would receive the wisdom, the knowledge, she would gain the insight, but she needed men to help her make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, women were at her side, and yes, they did a great deal. But there are things that men are better built for physically, and they did that. And so what happened was that the men of fire who proved themselves worthy, who were willing to dedicate themselves to a woman, they were joined in ceremony with a woman of fire.
Mm-hmm.
That was his greatest honor. The most extraordinary accomplishment you could ever have in his life is if he joined with a woman of fire. He was absolutely dedicated to her. Now, I will mention briefly that I come from the Hopi world here in the United States, and in the Hopi world, life revolves around the female. The creator of heaven and earth was Spider Woman. The center of the village life was the female. In fact, at powwows, when men would dress up, they could not ask a woman out. They couldn't court a woman in the old days. They had to try to attract the attention of the women in the audience in the hopes that one of the females would, call him out to the side and say, hey, let's go out for a cup of coffee or dinner or something. And men had to dress up. But if you note in nature, that's the way it is in nature as well. It's always the male that has to strut. He has to have the feathers. He has to have the call. He has to prove himself. And in the native world, actually in general across the globe, you'll find that it was always the males that had to dress up and strut and prove themselves to the females. In the Semsiye world, it was the same way. Men had to prove themselves. And if they were worthy, they were bonded to a female shaman, to a woman of fire. Now, was a woman of fire bonded to a man? No.
Uh-huh.
No. Now, this is a very quick linguistic lesson here. The divine feminine was known as Eke, E-K-E, or just the letter K. The word for spirit or soul, the genius, the fire of Lady Eke was the word Ori, O-R-I. So the fire of the divine feminine was Eke Ori or Ka Ori, and it was eventually reduced to Kor. Now, in the ancient languages, Kor, K-O-R, the K would soften and it would become Hor or Har. Anybody who studies the history of womankind
I
will
gotta
find
know where
the
this is
word,
going.
yeah, that it was either a har or a whore. Okay? Now, a woman who was a master shamaness, she was a har or a whore. And the men that bonded themselves to her, she did not bind herself to any one man because, frankly, a woman of fire needs more than one man to help her accomplish whatever she needs to do.
Too much woman for one man, huh?
I'm glad you said it. But yes, you're absolutely correct. So what happens? Well, she would have one man worthy, two men worthy, three men worthy. They were dedicated to her. And in the ancient languages, the suffix "im" means one who is of. So the men who were bonded to her became the harem. The word
Really?
harem eventually became harem
Harem.
when men of power took it over and said, no, no, no. It isn't the woman who should have multiple males at her beck and call. It should be we kings, we chiefs, we men of power. And so the harem was actually, in the beginning, males who were bonded, shaman males bonded to a shaman priestess, harem. Now, what happens when men of power, as I said, they tried to chase down the Semsiye society, and they failed. But what are they going to do with the idea of a woman who has many men? Well, she is a
Whore.
whore. There you go. So they turned it into a negative thing. The word whore comes from ekiori, kori, or kor, which simply means the fire of the divine feminine. And every shaman priestess had that fire. So the concept of marriage, now let me back up again. The word ori, spirit or fire. The divine feminine was also known as the Great Mother. What is the universal syllable, the consonant, for mother? It's ma. And so maori meant the fire of the mother. It's the same as kaori, but maori became Mary. And so throughout history, including the Bible and including a lot of the sacred scriptures, you go back into Greece, Egypt, and that, the word maori or Mary was always a symbol of a very holy woman. And when I'm sorry?
I'm just
You
saying,
had a sudden
wow.
thought.
Yeah.
So, when a man bonded himself to a shaman priestess, to a woman of fire, what did he do? He became Maori. He united with Maori. He married. The word marriage is actually, or marry, is, if you try to find an etymological dictionary to explain where it came from, they give you a really ridiculous argument. It doesn't make any sense. Maori is to join with a woman of fire. Marry is to become united with a shaman priestess. Now, I'm sorry, I'm rambling here, and I want to
No,
give you a
that's
chance.
fine. I'm blown away that the way that the world has been turned upside down and inside out and back to front is just extraordinary. It continues to amaze me. That's all.
Okay. Now, in the Bible, okay, there are numerous reference books. The standard reference book is something called the New Strong's Expanded Dictionary of Bible Words. You've got a concordance, New Strong's. There are only two words. If you look in the index, there are only two words that are listed under marriage. The first word, if anybody's keeping track, entry 1984, the word is halal, Halal. And here is the definition of the word halal. Okay? It means to be evident, to shine, to boast, to celebrate, glory, or worthy of praise. Now, what gave a man tremendous status in Bible times? The fact that he was married and the fact that he had children.
Mm-hmm.
But again, what was the focus of the event? Marry. The glory of a man was that he had a wife. Now, what they have done to join with a wife, to join with a woman, was transformed by men of power, and I am talking about scholars for thousands of years, who have said, no, he did not join with a wife, he took a wife.
Yeah.
That is a very aggressive way of saying, no, he's the master, he's the Lord. In fact, the word for Lord in the Bible is Baal, and you cannot be a Baal unless you are married. You could not achieve status unless you were married, and that goes back thousands of years to the original concept where a man's greatest glory, his greatest honor, that which he could boast about, was that he was united to a woman of fire. Later on in the Bible, even in Greek times, the Greeks were very, very anti-female. They were just, oh my goodness. In the Greek lands, actually, a woman could not even pick a partner. A woman was chosen in Greece, in ancient Greece. A woman was chosen by her father, and she said, okay, we need to talk about her being married and having a husband. She was 5 years old.
Mm-hmm.
By the age of 15, she should be married. The best candidate was a man who was at least 30 years old. Now, how was the marriage arranged?
Was
It
he
was
30 at the
arranged
time she was 5 or 15?
ultimately when she was married, she was 15, he was 30.
Okay.
Okay? So the best marriage partner was at the age of 30. But negotiations, and that's the appropriate word, were begun when she was 5 years old. And what happened was the father-in-law would literally put out bids. Who wants to marry my daughter? And Greek men would say, okay, when she's 15, I will marry her. And they would give, in Greek language, a word that meant a bride price. They would offer a certain amount of money, property, goods, merchandise, whatever, and say, if you'll let me marry your daughter when she turns 15, then I will give you all of this. Now, that bride price eventually became what we now know as a dowry.
Dowry, yeah.
But it was originally a price that was offered by a suitor to the man, to the father-in-law, and ultimately marriage was an arrangement between the father-in-law and the son-in-law. What say did a woman have? Absolutely none.
Well, at 5,
Absolutely
she wasn't going to get one, was she?
no. It was purely an economic move. And so when they got married, well, now she was property of the husband. She was property of the man that she married.
Well, bought and
Now,
paid for, yeah.
yeah, now, what were the restrictions placed upon the two partners in marriage? In marriage, a Greek male could indulge in homosexuality, he could have a mistress, and he could entertain prostitutes. However, a woman had to remain faithful to her husband. If she was unfaithful, if she transgressed, by law, the Greek male had to divorce the woman. Had to. What did she leave the marriage with?
Nothing.
And then it even gets worse. If during the course of the marriage, if she was attacked and raped, the husband was forced to divorce his wife. And, however, he could hurt the rapist. He could maim him, he could kill him, or in most cases, the husband could force the rapist to pay a financial penalty. Sorry?
I'm just, okay.
Now, here's the problem. I mean, Western civilization as we know it, everybody brags about how it was the Greeks that gave us Western civilization, the institutions, the concepts of democracy, and the concepts of, all these philosophical good things in our life, in our Western civilized life, came from the Greeks. The Greeks were extraordinary misogynists. They did not like women, period. They just could not. Women were property to be treated as nothing more than property. If a woman
and still are in
property,
some cultures.
Absolutely. Inheritance was never passed through the male. It was always through the female. It was always passed through the son. If a man died and he did not have sons, but he had a daughter, the property was attached, or perhaps it better said, the woman was attached to his property. And the closest male to the father had first rights. He could marry this woman, take her as his wife, and take all the property, and it was in his name. Now, he could do this. He could marry her even though he was already married. So the Greeks, everything they did was about the about the male. Females were excluded. One quick interjection, and I apologize, but I get on a ramble here.
It's okay, I like your rambles.
Okay, the whole concept of chastity. Okay, what is chastity? Well, you've got to protect your feminine, I don't know what word I want to use here, but chastity was, you don't do anything. You protect your virginity, period. That is not what chastity was to the ancient Greeks. Now, I'm talking about misogynists. okay? But the Greeks said that chastity was limiting your sexual activity to anything that was good for the society. Okay, that was chastity. That didn't mean that you couldn't go out and have some sort of relations. You could be chaste as long as the activity benefited the society. Now, what does that mean
What does
in
that mean?
regards
Yeah.
to what does that mean in regards to adultery? Okay? A minute ago, I was telling you that if a woman committed adultery, if she was not faithful, that she was immediately to be divorced. That was the law. But there was a codicil. There was an escape clause. If what she did benefited the society, if it benefited the economy, if it benefited the political status of her family or of Greeks in general, then it was okay. All right?
Mm.
It was permissible if, adultery was permissible if it benefited society. And why did they even come up with that concept? All right? I want to look at, give me a second here. A quote. Greek medicine taught that women need sex physiologically. Given a taste of carnal pleasure, they readily become addicted to it. Too much sexual activity, however, also caused women to age quickly. This comes from some of the laws that were written in ancient Greece. It's actually, you can find it in the Handbook on Ancient Greek Life, okay? But here's a problem. This is a quote, a sex-hungry woman was a threat. Not only because she might be prone to make demands during summer, the wrong time of the year, but because she consumed menos, a man's vital fluid. Her womb, it's actually called a gaster, was an unplumbed abyss into which he poured his limited resources of semen. These were Greek laws. I'm going to invite you.
I don't even know what to make of that, but what does
Okay,
it mean by
one
demands
last.
in summer?
I'm sorry?
Demands in
Oh, in
summer.
summer. Oh, no. A man had to focus in summer. He had to focus. That was when he could be physically active. He could be in business. He could conduct,
Okay.
physical life existed during the summer. During the winter, it was very difficult. Greece is a very, very harsh environment. But I'm going to invite you to go on my Lady of Fire website. And I want you to listen to an audio that's called The Wandering Womb. Because now, some of the most incredibly intelligent Greek men, again, men who contributed to Western civilization's origins, one of these men was known as Plato. I'm sure you've heard of Plato, right? Okay. Plato called the uterus, let's see if I remember this, an animal within an animal. Right? The uterus is an animal within an animal. He was convinced that if her uterus tasted or experienced sexual contact, that it would become ravenous. And if it was not satisfied, if these desires, this animalistic desires were not fulfilled, the womb would move through the woman's body. It was a wandering womb. It would rise up into her stomach. It would rise up into her lungs and her throat. It could choke her to death. It could impede her respiration. She could become violently ill if the womb was not satisfied. An angry womb is a dangerous thing.
This is what I'm supposed to be one of the most enlightened people of the time.
This is Plato. Now,
does that mean that men had a responsibility to keep a woman sexually satisfied?
Exactly. Now, where would that possibly have come from? And I'm going to argue again that it is born from thousands of years earlier, when men of fire had to provide the spark, the fire that a woman of fire needed in order to make contact with the other world, to become fire herself. In the Hopi world, the way I was taught, the way I grew up, we were taught that a man's job is to, if he has a partner in life, if he's married, if he's united with a woman, it's his job to do the cooking, take care of the children, work in the fields, take care of the house, do the ironing, do the washing, do whatever was necessary in order for family life to succeed, to be fulfilled. What was the woman's task? Again, in the Hopi world, in the old ways, what was the woman's task? It was her job to become a bright, dancing star in the heavens. A man was supposed to provide the opportunity and the spark that would cause her to rise up, to explode and rise up, burst into the sky and become a bright dancing star. Once she achieved that, she would reach back and she would bring him and his family up with her. And these ideas that Plato and Hippocrates and several of these Greek philosophers had knew that for some reason women's passion was an extraordinary power. But rather than try to use it, rather than try to understand it and access it and benefit from it, they turned it into this horrific beast. A woman's fire, her womb, was an animal within an animal. In fact, there is one story, very difficult for me to be able to source it. I mean, it's a legend, but I can't find where it began. But it's an extension of Plato's theory that this wandering womb would not only go throughout the body and pose her tremendous difficulties if it was not satisfied. There is a legend, and again, I cannot find a source for it, but it says that this womb, at night when she was sleeping, if it could not find some sort of satisfaction within her body, it would sneak out in the middle of the night, and it would go hunting in the alleyways and in the darkness for some poor unsuspecting male so that it could become satisfied. This is probably the source of those legends about the succubus and all those weird spirits and sprites, those demon feminine spirits that would go out and they would grab a man and seduce him, and well, I'm sure you know those stories. But it came from the concept that a woman's fire was extraordinarily powerful, but the Greeks turned it into a demonic, horrific creature. Wandering womb. There's a lot more to this. You'd be surprised at what I found when I began to research what the Greeks did. So ultimately, the concept of marriage has been completely twisted around, completely turned around, where once it focused on women, and as you said, one man isn't going to do it. And there's physiological evidence as well that supports that premise. I think we talked about it the last time about
with the Semsiye marriage, though. If a Semsiye woman of fire had more than one partner, were they bound to be faithful to her?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, no. Let me amend that. Let me take that back. There are some aspects to the sacred marriage, the Semsiye marriage, that are different from what we would expect. Now, the men were bound to a woman of fire. Let us say, for example, that she had a harem, 3 men of fire. One was a good hunter, one was a good warrior, maybe one was a good negotiator with other tribes and, worked with other people. And suppose then she finds in her life, suppose she finds that, oh, I have found another man and he is an excellent hunter. So now in her harem, she has 2 hunters, she has a warrior, and she has a negotiator. However, her sister, another lady of fire, perhaps through accident, perhaps for some reason, she had lost her hunter. If the 2 women felt that it was right, if the second woman who did not have a hunter, if she saw that the other extra hunter, one of the 2 hunters, was worthy, the 2 women would sit together and they would agree that one of the hunters would go be with the other lady of fire. A man of fire was dedicated to a lady of fire, period.
So they wouldn't share him. One would actually sort of hand him over to the other.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
yeah. Now, I mean, I have to tell you that in the old ways, that if there was a woman of fire, the high priestess would often, at least according to the legends, a high priestess, a true woman of fire, she might need 2 or 3 hunters. She might need 2 negotiators. She might need 2 cooks. I mean, her harem, whatever it was necessary that would allow her to continue to be able to connect with the other world. I think it's excessive when when men say, well, yeah, Solomon had 1,000 wives, etc. I forget what the numbers were. That was not the way it was. A man of fire was bound to a lady of fire, but the lady of fire was absolutely willing to give part of what I want to call her wealth, her harem, to another sister if in fact the other sister was lacking. And there was no animosity, there was no fighting, and the man of fire, he, no matter what happened, he benefited because now he was with a lady of fire who really needed him. And he was, perhaps not as necessary to the first lady of fire. I'm not sure if I made that point. But a man of fire who unites with a lady of fire gains extraordinary reward. I actually believe that if you go out there and you look, you search, that there are men who are out there who realize, who are in a situation where if they have a woman of fire in their life, there isn't anything they wouldn't do for that woman. Now, unfortunately, I believe that is rare today, but I believe they are out there. A man of fire will dedicate himself to a lady of fire simply because the rewards are greater than this existence, greater than this reality, greater than this 4% reality. They are extraordinary what you can gain in the presence of and a union with a lady of fire.
Do you think that the relationship the Lady of Fire had with all of her men of fire was necessarily a sexual one?
No, absolutely not.
No?
In some cases it could be, and in some cases, I mean, and I think that's what tears a lot of women apart. I've spoken to so many women, and I've read the studies, and you read the books, and you go through, and you find that a lot of women are frustrated. It's because there seems to be, and I'm generalizing. I'm sure it's not in every case, but there seems to be in most women, they want a companion, someone they can talk to, someone they can share, someone that they can, have a life with. They want a father, and a father and someone they want to spend time with may not necessarily be the same individual. They want someone who will help them take care of the children, who will be there for the children. But there's also the protector, not necessarily the husband, not, and the provider. They want a protector. They want someone who's going to stand up for them. And this individual who stands up for them, the warrior, the champion, is what I would generally describe as most women call him the bad boy. They want that wild man. They want that individual who will stand up against all odds, who is willing to break the rules, who is part of nature, who, women want a lot of
It's actually a lot of
presence.
pressure for a single man to fulfill all of those roles.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if you look at the physiological structure of both men and women, you'll find that women really need more than what they normally get from one individual. To find one individual, one man, who can provide all those things for you,
But men can
that's
probably
going to,
say the same thing, that it's difficult to find what they need wrapped up in one
okay.
woman as well.
I don't have any problem with that, but then I get into the concept of the 4% and the 96%, this world and the other world. One of the problems that I have with this world and the religions and a lot of what people are trying to tell us about an afterlife and conduct yourself in a good way so that when you're, when you pass on, you shed the mortal coil, you end up in a paradise in a heaven where you have good food and you have peace and you have a garden and you have all that. But you know what? Those are real world. Those are 4% concepts. What happens in the other world, if we want to be in a heaven that is just an extension of this world, then we've made a mistake. There's an example that I use in my website, and I'm not sure that my mushy audios. It's about a goldfish that I have in my library. And in the goldfish world, in his aquarium, everything that he knows, if this aquarium were the size of this planet, he believes that all life has to breathe water. He believes that all life has to have fins and gills. They all have to be like him. Now, how do I explain to my goldfish Mushy, how do I explain to him a bicycle? How do I explain to him my computer? How do I explain to him that I can live out here and I don't breathe water, I don't have gills, I don't have fins? How do I explain to him what my world is like? All he can think of is that his afterlife, his paradise, is going to be another fish tank. It's going to be another, paradise fish world. And what I am trying to persuade people is that, you know what, if that's what you're looking for, is another fish paradise, another fish world, an extension of this existence, then go for it. I suggest, and the Semsiye way says, that there is more to our existence. This isn't it. This is 4% out of 100% existence. Yeah. And to get to the other world, you have to connect with your fire. You have to connect with that passion. You have to connect with the invisible. And I'm telling you, there are women out there, and every single day, there's a woman out there, and she does something that is impossible. It can't happen. It's magic. She knows something, she senses something, she does something that is impossible in the 4% world. That is when she's in touch with her 96% with her other world. And can you imagine if you could do that all the time? What if you could do something impossible right now and do it in the next hour and predict what's going to happen? And what if you could change the wind? What if you could change the weather? I'm going to tell you something that is really, really impossible to believe. But oftentimes in my family, and there are people who have gone with us, if I am fortunate, when I am conducting an honoring or when I am doing a dance, if I am fortunate, I can make the wind change direction, I can make it stop, I can make it turn around, I can do things. We have taken pictures where I've been very fortunate and little balls of light will show up. There have been changes in the weather where a thunderstorm will suddenly appear. I am not a shaman. I am not a magician. I do not have extraordinary powers. But it is possible to connect with the 96% with the other world and make things happen. And women have that extraordinary ability, far greater than any man could ever do. It is amazing what you ladies do. And I think the proof of that, the proof that you can do the impossible, go to a man and say, what would you think you could do if you were a woman? There isn't a man on this planet that could do what you guys do just surviving this world. You are a blessing. You are a wonder. You are an amazement. You are extraordinary. If there is such a thing as a diamond in this universe, you're it. You're remarkable creatures. Amazing.
I hope every lady of fire out there finds a man of fire like you, Robert.
I would love to be able to share with you, and that's what I'm trying to do on my websites. That's what I was trying to do until I got stopped. What I am trying to do is say, ladies, my goodness, you've got a fire in there. And I know you love your husbands, and I know you love your kids, and I know you love your partners in that, but I understand completely that they may not be enough. Somewhere, somehow, you're going to be sitting there tonight in your couch, you're going to be lying in bed, and you're going to go, there's more to this existence, there's more to me than what I am going through. There's more to this world. And gentlemen, there are men of fire out there that are doing the same thing. They're going, this isn't it.
It's not enough.
It's not enough. That's a good way to put it. This isn't enough. We're in a 4% existence, and there's 96% out there waiting for us. And it is not going to be a garden and a paradise where, we've got trees and ponds and fish and peace and calm. No, it's going to be what we cannot imagine. It's going to be infinitely better. And there's only one way to find out what it is. And we have to, and I'm talking about men as well, men and women, we have to go after our 96%. We have to go after our fire. But warning, there are going to be obstacles. There are people out there that do not want you or me to go after that fire because it upsets the institutions that are designed to keep us under control. I am not looking for a rebellion. I don't want to establish a matriarchy. I don't think that it's going to happen with the millions and billions of people that are going to be on this planet. It's going to take a handful of women and a handful of men to begin to slowly bring back some of the old ways. How many people are going to escape this existence and go into the next level, into the other world? Just a handful. A handful of men and women, women and men who will become one with their fire and break through the veil.
You know, since the beginning of this year, since the 21st of December last year, I have seen the number of people not only state that there has to be more, but put their hand up in order to achieve that more, to reach for that more, to activate that more, has just grown exponentially over the last 5-6 weeks. I want to thank you.
Thank you very, very much for allowing me to be with you.
It's been a pleasure.
All right. Take care, Miss Lisa.
We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.